Hi and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. In this video I want to explain why, for myself personally, I'm so sure and so confident in what I say and what I believe. Because as I've been explaining in the other videos, and I've been pondering on how to make it clear, because it feels like it isn't clear in today's world, even though it really should be. Life is as simple as choosing what and who you believe, and that's it. As I explained in my first video, there's so much we don't know, truly. There's so much we can't know, that you just got to choose who to believe and what to believe. Now, the problem with that, as I have explained again, and as is sensible if you think about it for more than a few seconds, or if you just think about it, is that life has consequences, existence has consequences, nature has consequences. There's consequences to everything. You know, the laws of thermodynamics and just law and nature itself all have consequences. The same applies to what you believe, and that can be in the short term. Short term of what you believe could lead to you going to prison, or ending up dead, or sick, or ruining a relationship, whatever. Or in the long term, and the long term, the longest of terms, is what happens after you die. And again, you still have to believe, like how things began in the beginning of the universe. You have to pick a theory, you have to pick a belief of how you think that happened. The same as what happens at the end of your universe, your perception of the universe, is when you die. You have to pick what you believe, what happens. And that's just that's just how things are. That's just a fact. That's just reality. And I'm not sure if it's because people don't want to face consequences, like people don't like the idea of that their actions have consequences, but it's just how things work. It's not that I forget that people don't have, obviously I'm myself, I have my own experience in my own life, I have my own things that I've been through. But even without that, you don't need to have what I've had or seen for that to be the case. It's not a subjective thing. It applies to everyone and all of nature and all of existence. So I wanted to make this video, one, for the obvious thing, to share what I've been through, because I think it's worthwhile just on its own. But the second thing is, like I've explained several times, is the best way to know something is to experience it for yourself, to be there, to experience it in the present, to experience it with your senses, to touch, to see, to all of those things. That's just typically the easiest way to know something. Sure, they can be influenced to a degree, drug use or mental disorders or extreme stress or fatigue, yada yada. But if everything is at its norm, then that's just how you generally know things. Like I said, I'm sitting here right now talking to the camera, feeling like a crazy person in my premium 100% Australian cotton. No, that's a belief. I'm sitting here in a white t-shirt. I can know those things because I'm experiencing it, and that's nice. That keeps things simple. So the point that I'm getting to is, like I've talked about in other videos, the miracles, the supernatural things that happen, the inexplicable things, you could say, that don't ratify very well with our understanding of science. I'll talk about what I've been through, what I've seen and what I've experienced, because it's a lot. And I've met and talked to many people in the world, many Christians, priests, Catholics, whatever. And I haven't met many people at all that have experienced things like I have. And I don't mean to boast, because it's not something I'm doing or that I've merited that I could understand. But I think it's a truth worth telling. So I'll get into it. And again, to cut through the fat, I just want to tell you about the miracles that I've been blessed with in my life, and other people as well. But I'll start with mine, because obviously the knowing part is more credible. So the first one that always stands out to me whenever someone asks about this, or if I feel like it's worth talking about, is the time I was hit by a bus, but not actually hit by it, and didn't receive any injuries. So I kind of have to go in detail with this, and I probably will with a few of these ones, but it's somewhat necessary. So I was 13, I was riding my bike in my hometown, didn't have a helmet on, I was on the way to a party, and I heard a vehicle coming from behind me, so I decided I was on the wrong side of the road, so I went to switch what side of the road I was on to let them pass, but this bus that was behind me also went to go around me because I was on the wrong side of the road. So we basically did the same thing at the same time, and he was a male driver. He ran into the back of my bike. Now, I don't know how fast he was going, but I do know he was going fast enough that my bike ended up wholly under the bus, and I ended up, from my memory, at least 4 to 5 meters in front of the bus. So it was just a normal push bike. He's hit me from behind, and just before the buses hit my bike, or however it worked, I remember a big bright white flash of light, and I thought that he'd put the high beams on, which is possible. He may have done that, put the high beams on to be like, oh, I'm about to run you over, which doesn't make a lot of sense in hindsight. And at the time, I didn't think much of this. I just thought I was hit by a bus and got off lucky. I don't know. It was only once I was in high school and studying physics that it started to click that something was wrong here, something wasn't adding up. But anyway, there was a big flash of light, and then I just flew, like Superman flew off my bike out in front of the bus. And again, none of this, and I was 13 at the time, so my lack of understanding, and not my lack of memory, because I remember it very vividly, and I've gone over it again many times. But I flew out in front of the bus, and I just assumed I got booked, but I didn't. I flew out in front of the bus, and then I landed on the road in front of me. Got up. I'll go over the details afterwards, because I'll just go over it as I remember or perceived it at the time, even though my memory was vivid, but I just didn't think to go over it. Got up, turned around to the bus driver, saw his horrified expression, saw my bike crumpled under the bus. I was very upset. My cool bike. So I went out and reefed the bike out from under the bus. I possibly showed one of my fingers to the to the bus driver in my frustration. I dragged my bike to the side of the road, threw it to the side of the road, and it happened out the front of a hotel, and the receptionist came running out, screaming out. She's like, oh my gosh, what happened? I'm like, I just got hit by this bus driver guy. So she called an ambulance. I was just sitting on the side of the road, and the bus driver would stay in the bus for a while. He eventually came out of the bus and was just looking at me, and I was just like, what an a-hole. You've run me over, say sorry or something. But he was just in shock, and I thought at the time he just, I don't know, didn't have manners, or he was so shocked, and it could have been, and it very much could have been the case. And then he just drove away. And I remember thinking later on, oh, he just didn't want to get in trouble from the police, which again is possible, and possibly likely too, or a number of things. He didn't want to be late for his next stop, whatever. I just remember thinking what are you doing? At least say sorry. But he was really shocked. Anyway, the ambulance came. Paramedic was, patching up my wounds, and he was asking what happened. I said, well, I got hit by a bus. And he laughed at me. And I'm like, why are you laughing? he's like, well, and I think he thought I was maybe exaggerating or joking. And then he shut his mouth after that. Because I think he was looking at my wounds. And here's what, yeah, I'll go back in detail past all the things that happened. But he was just patching up. I only had, and I still have the scars for it. I don't know if they would come up. I wonder if that will come up. There's a little, can you see the whiteness of it? Zoom in. Anyway, I've got those little patches on my knees and elbows because that's how I landed, on my knees and elbows. And they were the only bits that got, the only injuries I got. So he's just patching up those. And they were pretty bad gravel rash. And I think he didn't know what to say. And again, I was like, getting a lot of sympathy tonight. So I ended up getting bandaged up. And I walked to the party. And at the party, oh, what happened to you? I get hit by a bus. Ha ha ha. And I'm like, why does nobody believe me? Anyway, so once I got into physics in high school and started studying, and as the years went on, it kind of clicked, and eventually I realized what happened shouldn't have happened. And maybe this already makes sense to you if you have a good understanding of physics and momentum and whatnot. But I'll explain it in general terms, just so it's easier for a general audience. But I'm on the bike. I'm going slower than the bus, obviously. The bus is going faster than I am for it to hit me and catch up to me. It hits at first point would be the back tire, my back tire. Now what would happen is my bike would then stop and start to be eaten, basically start to go under the bus. Now I'm assuming the bus is already decelerating from braking at this point, but my bike does end up underneath the bus, like entirely underneath the bus. Now I'm attached to the bike. I'm sitting on the bike and I'm gripping onto the bike. For me to come off the bike, I'd have to like physically jump, like throw myself off the pedals and the bike at the perfect moment, which I didn't do that. It's not, I didn't, I just remember big flash of light and then I'm flying. I didn't do that. And to pull that off, I would have had to have, yeah, again, I've done this. I've sat here and thought about this time and time again, but I didn't do that. But let's speculate if I could have. Well, would have had to do it like at the moment of impact, just when the bike has touched the back of my tire, and then realize that, and then. But even then, I ended up meters in front of the bus, because I remember turning around at the bus and being like, I was 4 to 5 meters away from it. I can't jump that far off a sitting bike position. And it doesn't work physically, but if you have a general understanding of physics, you might think, oh, the bus hits the bike and then you bunk because the bike stops. No, that's not how it works, because I would need to have something to accelerate me faster than the bus, because I'm going slower than the bus at this time. That's how the bus catches up to me, right? And if the bike stops, sure, you might think, well, your momentum might carry forward. Yeah, carry forward into the handlebars. Anyway, I should have ended up getting hit by the front of the bus, because it's a big flat front face of the bus. Should have got hit as the bus was coming through. Sorry for the loud clapping. And gone underneath the bus with the bike. That didn't happen. The next thing is the flash of light, which could have been the high beams. And then the flying out in front. It reminds me of this meme where someone picks up a sloth and the sloth goes into like this baby carrying position with all its appendages out. That's how I felt. Like I was like, oh. But then I landed on the road. And even if I had have been like someone had have just thrown me off my bike, and I've come off my bike several times, the fact that I didn't injure my head or hands or like anything, like I didn't hit the ground. Because you come off your bike, you hit the ground, right? Or you put your hands down and you tear up your hands first. And to go back to you didn't get hit, I didn't receive any other injuries. not a bunk or anything like that. And again, I used to play rugby. I know what it's like to be steamrolled by something bigger than yourself. So if a bus had have hit me and I had have like tumbled forward from that impact, somehow avoiding my handlebars and flying instead of rolling, yeah, I would have been in a lot of damage. But that's not what happened. Anyway, I just like was gently slid down onto the road like a landing paraglider, just on my elbows and knees for whatever reason. And I think this is why I think it's a possibility why the bus driver's reaction was what it was. I think he saw it from the like what happened, right? Third person point of view. So he saw something that happened that shouldn't have happened the way that it did. And I think that's probably what shocked him. Now, maybe not, but he would have seen what happened, and what happened doesn't make sense in a physical understanding. So most likely it would have been surprising in some degree. Anyway, so that's one thing. I've got a list. It's a long list. This might be a long video. Probably will be a long video. Now, I like starting with that one because it's got a bit of detail and you can run your physics in there as well to kind of debunk it and try knuckle it down. Second one is later on in life. I would have been 25 or 26. And to make it clear, I've been Catholic and Christian, same thing, Christian, my whole life. And these things aren't, miracles and prayer and spiritual life are very common to me. Because I grew up with all this kind of stuff. And maybe that's, no, I don't remember. Anyway, what I'm saying is miracles, like you've heard one. I've got so many within the family, within like for myself personally, but especially like other family members, more than me, way more than me. I've grown up with this. This is like the norm. It's kind of like, anyway, that's just how it is. But this is later on in life. I just had a spiritual message, like someone talking in the mind about one of my friends, very good friend who I had somewhat of a relationship with, and we weren't talking. We were not on talking terms. And it was basically, there's lots of Aussies coming. It was basically them, something to do with a baby, and a breakup in relationship. And I was just like, well, why are you telling me this? Like, what use is this? And it just kept coming. And I was getting annoyed because, again, I didn't want to talk to this person. But I was like, fine, like what do you want me to do with it? Because again, I'm not a fool to try and argue with God. So I just said, what do you want me to do with it? And the inspiration I got was, well, you need to contact the person. So I went, fine, I'll just keep it at a basic. So I contacted them. I just sent them a text message saying, look, I've been given this message or inspiration. Something to do with a baby with you and something about a breakup in relationship. And to me personally, I had no idea what it meant, because like a baby, this, and it was a female I was talking to, was never having a kid. Like it was, of course it was possible. Well, I don't know that. I'd assume it was possible. She'd not had a child before, but it was not on this person's radar at all. So to me, that didn't make logical sense. I was like, okay. And then a breakup in a relationship didn't make sense because they were like locked in with the person they were in, even if they didn't want to be per se. And I didn't hear back from them, and I didn't expect to. But then a few days later, they called me, and longer story short, they said I had a miscarriage, and I'm no longer with so-and-so. And this is the first time I had got something like that, some clear like message, like, and then like an instruction of what to do with it. So to have it pay off, well, not pay off, to have it just be true, was pretty amazing. Yeah. So obviously with all these things, you just have to believe what I'm saying. That's as simple as it is. Again, that's what I was saying at the start of the video. In life, you choose who you believe and what you believe. And I contemplated this a number of times. How do I get people to believe me? Do I show photographs? Do I show the messages? Do I get the people involved to send me a voice message or this, that, and the other? And a part of me goes, well, if you don't trust me, if you don't believe me, then what's to say you're going to trust the text message? Because I could just write that myself or Photoshop it. Or the person saying it. Who's to say I didn't just pay some voice person to just say this? You could come up, if you wanted to, you could come up with any logical reason to why you choose not to believe me. So it's pointless, really. And that's pretty common sense. But I think I'll just leave it up to you. You either decide whether you believe me or if you assume that I'm lying to you. Just sitting here lying to this camera, to whoever the heck's watched this for whatever reason you can come up with. Okay, sure. But I also think about these things as well, because from my point of view, well, I didn't see this person have a miscarriage, and I didn't see them break up with the other person. So I contacted the other person because they were a friend of mine, and yeah, they weren't together anymore. So at least that part was true. And that, even if it was just the one thing, so-and-so has had a breakup. Well, I had no way to know that. So to be told that and for it to be true, and it was even recent as well, where I would expect it to not happen, doesn't matter what I expect. Well, that's that. But then the baby part of it too, I didn't ask the other person about the miscarriage because one, sensitive, and two, I'm not sure if they knew. Yeah. So that was a big one for me. What's next on my big list? Oh yeah, nice. This one's interesting. So as a Catholic, I receive Holy Communion, which is the bread, the unleavened bread wafer, and the wine. Often not the wine. It's generally on special occasions that they do both species of the bread and the wine. But anyway, most commonly you just receive the bread, the host. And there was one point in my life, again, probably 26, where I started noticing that the host, and it's just a piece of very plain bread, started to taste like the wine. And I don't think I realized it at first, but it became more and more pronounced. And it lasted about 2 months that this was happening, but it probably took me like a few days or even a week to like click on and be like, this is not tasting normal anymore. And I just went up and asked the priest because I knew what the taste was. Like I knew that flavor. I knew, yeah, it was the same taste of church wine. I just went and asked the priest, is like the unleavened bread, is the host different at all? And he said, no. He said, it's always the same. And I just said, okay. And then for like 2 months, every time I received Holy Communion, I could just taste wine. And that's cool. That's great. It's a simple one. And if it like, to give like more to that, not that it's important to the aspect of it, but you know, it's believed in Catholicism that one species, like the body contains all of Christ's body, blood, soul, and divinity, right? So even if you just have you don't need both the bread and the wine, the body and the blood. At least in Catholicism, it's taught like that, to have all of Christ. So to me personally, because I had 2 months to like ponder this wine taste in my mouth, excuse me. My thought was possibly it's just to like reinforce that, Christ being like, no, all of me is in this. Just to prove the point, I'll make it turn into wine in your mouth. And I never pulled it out to have a look to see if there was wine there. I never thought to do that either. And I think even if I did think to do that, I probably wouldn't have, because that's disrespectful and unnecessary. It's not what faith is. But it would have been cool, but I'm somewhat glad I didn't have the dilemma to think about. I literally only just thought about that now as a possibility. But that was one. Oh yeah, this one's cool. So I had a Bible, my favoritist Bible, and I kept it always in the same place. When I was living at one house, I moved to another house, but I left, and it was I was living at my parents' house. So I left it there at my parents' house in the place where it always was, because I didn't have enough space. And it was a massive Bible. Like it was like 3 times the size of this, maybe even larger. So I didn't have enough space to take it in my luggage because it was really heavy. And I also left behind with it this image that I got when I was in Ukraine. Kiev. Yeah, I was in Kiev, no, outside of Kiev, near Chernobyl. And I was staying with this couple there. Anyway, they had a friend who would carve holy images, like images of Jesus and Mary and the saints, on wood, and he would just use a soldering iron to do it. So he would burn the image. Oh, gifted man, I'll tell you what, they're beautiful. And he offered me one, which was amazing. So I took one and I brought it back home to Australia. I'm surprised they let me take it into immigration through customs. But I had that. I didn't take that with me as well because again, a limited amount of stuff I could take with me where I was going. I left both of those behind. And then once I had settled into my new home, I flew back there sometime later to get the remainder of my stuff to do a second trip. And I went to get my Bible and this image because they were one on top of the other and they were both missing. So I asked Mum and Dad, like, have you touched my stuff? But they said, no, we haven't touched any of your stuff. I went, okay. So I thought maybe my memory was playing up, which I'm like, no, because it was just like the spot for it. It didn't go anywhere else. But I looked everywhere else for it because it was very important and expensive as well. Couldn't find it, nor the image that was on top of it. I said, where's my thing? And they said, what's that image? I said, we don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So I just was like, what? So I went back home pretty discouraged because it was my favoritist Bible. I'm aware favoritist isn't a word, by the way. And then like a year and a half later, it was some time later, like possibly even up to 2 years later, I'd met my wife. We weren't married yet. No, we were engaged. And one day, my parents were just up at their house again because they were selling at this time. And they said, we found your Bible. I said, where'd you find it? They said, in the place where you said it was, under the wardrobe. I said, no, it wasn't. No. They said, well, that's where it was. I said, was there a holy image on top of it? They said, no, we didn't see that. I was like, oh, great. So they're like, what do you want us to do with the Bible? At this point, I had already bought another copy. So I said, I don't know, give it to my friend so-and-so. So they did that. And like 2 or 4 days later, I opened a drawer. And the holy image was just there, sitting in this drawer, this empty drawer. I literally opened it to put some new things into it to make use of this drawer. And there it was, this holy image. And Mum and Dad hadn't come back from their trip because your thought could be, oh, maybe you have a sneaky lying parents that took you, which is a weird thing, but it's still possible, of course. They hadn't come back yet. So, but it was just delivered to me. Miraculously delivered to me. That was interesting. It was nice because I had my wife there too. So we got to enjoy that together. And I still have that. Not that it matters. Not like, oh, here's the image, therefore the story's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this one. This one's not so pleasant. Yeah, not all good spiritual interactions are. No, they are. I can't say that. I was going to say not all of them are good, but they are because they are where they originate from and what they achieve is good. Because God's anyway, that's a bit in depth. But this one was frightening. So I was 11 years old, soon to be 12. And please don't go, oh, you were... No, I'm sorry. I have a very good memory. And I also have the humility to say and contemplate if my memory wasn't good enough or if there was a possibility of something else. And I'm telling you the age that I was as well, so you can have an understanding. If I wanted to lie to you, I would, oh, this happened when I was 28. Oh, my memory is so good. It was only a short... I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you the truth, and you believe me or you don't. So I was 11 to shortly turn 12. I was staying at my grandparents' place, And my cousin and I were sleeping in the same room on a bunk bed. He was up on the top bunk, and we're going to bed. And I remember specifically him saying, "Oh, don't forget to say your nighttime prayers." And I was at a age in my life where I started to get a bit of, free will. Like I'm started to mature or realize that I can make my own decisions. And I thought, oh, is it really important? Like, and it didn't seem like a big deal. Like, oh, nighttime prayers. Yeah, I say them all the time. Do I? Oh, man. Now, I did fall asleep, but don't you take, I wasn't dreaming. You'll hear the story and we'll go from there. But I fell asleep, didn't say my prayers. I woke up to a weight, pressure, just squashing me like into the mattress. And I woke up because I couldn't breathe. And like I knew something. I knew spiritually. I knew what was going on. I was being squashed by a. I'll just be frank, like a demon, an evil spirit. And I don't know what it was, but it's got to be one of those. Or it honestly, it could have even been like an angel. It could have been my guardian angel teaching me a lesson. I can't say, that it wasn't God or someone doing that, but it felt like not nice. Now, in saying that, even like the apostles and many people, when they are interacting with God or heavenly persons, they are fearful. So it could have been that. Anyway, someone, an invisible someone, or something supernatural, was squashing me. Couldn't breathe. So I was like, well, and I mean, like, I'm not struggling, like I couldn't breathe. So I managed to roll out of bed, get out of bed, but then I was on my stomach on the floor, and then the same thing, like squashing me. And my thing is like, oh, I got to get to grandpa. You know what I mean? I got to get to grandma and grandpa's bedroom. Problem is, one, it's pretty far away. Two, it's up a flight of stairs. I started crawling though because it was my instinct. I'm like, I got to move. I got to do something. I'm gonna die. So I started crawling, and I mean, I took probably like 3 or 4 elbow crawls, and I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna die. So I got the inspiration because at that time I wasn't sitting there and be like, oh, what should I do now? I was terrified. It just came into my mind, crucifix. I was like, oh, I got to touch it. I got to touch it. And there was a crucifix up on the bedside table. So I started crawling over there, crawl. And I'm, it gives me, anyway, gives me goosebumps. Therefore, it's true. But it does. Anyway, I crawled over there. And as soon as I touched it, gone. As soon as I touched it, gone. Weight lifted. And I took a big old gasp of air. I'm sure you can imagine it. Yeah. And I sat up, and the first thing I did was say my prayers and apologized. But yeah, I didn't wake up. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a night terror. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just tearing up because as a father now, I'm just imagining my 11-year-old self going through that, and it was rough. But anyway, that was a good lesson. As the first time I had something like that I could remember, because I had lots of things that happened before I had good memory, like when I was 3 and 5, and even before I was born. But I'll do all the things that I can remember, and that happened to me directly before, because and the video will probably be too long, so I probably have to do a second video to do all the things that happen to other people. Sorry, I'm on my tablet while talking to you, trying to pump through these. Oh yeah, well, talking about children and being a father now. I'll try to keep this one short. Anyway, we moved into a new place. We were just renting a place. And my son, we only had one, our first boy at this time, he was falling backwards. Like, my wife would be playing with him. He just learned how to sit up. Well, he didn't. He knew how to sit up and he could crawl, but he was sitting up and then he would just fall backwards. And my wife was spending most of the time looking after him. And it would happen again and again. I got angry. I'm like, what are you doing, woman? Like, look after him. And she was like, it just every time I turn away. And I'm like, stop making excuses. Put a pillow behind him or sit behind him or something like this. And I started to pay more attention. And she was doing the things that I suggested that she should do. And like she would be putting the pillow, or she'd sit behind him, but then she would move to go get a toy and then he would like fall over. And I started to feel like, hold on. So one time, not to prove a point, but I was just playing with him and looking after him. And I was playing with him and had my eyes on him and I had my feet behind him. Like he was sitting in between like the gap of my legs. And it was all good, all normal. And again, I wasn't, waiting for something to happen because it didn't. I just thought he was falling backwards, or maybe he was doing a bit of a jerking motion and falling backwards. Yeah, sorry for the change in lighting and sound. The mosquitoes coming to feast. But yeah, I was looking after my boy and I had literally my eyes weren't even off him yet. I went to go get a toy or move something and he just went flat. He just got, and like, I know my son, how he moves, and it was such an unnatural fall and push backwards. And I saw it like out of the corner of my eye. And I went, no, something's going on here. And again, I'm 29, no. I'm 30 at this point, and this is not my first rodeo of this type. And I just went, no way. And I turned to my wife and I said, I think I know what's going on here. And to make it clear to you, I think he was being pushed. Someone was pushing, something was pushing him over, because it was just, it's like if you saw a tackle, but then removed the tackler out of the video, like, CGI'd them out of the video. It would be such an unnatural jerk. And I went, nah, this is not my son. So I prayed and blessed the house and cast out in whatever form I have, whatever authority I have, and calling on the authority of Christ, yada, yada, doing it in the most responsible, sensible way I could. Because I said, this is not, because we had carpet too, right? But he was getting flattened down onto the carpet and there was tiles under the carpet. So it was still hard. Anyway, I did that. And then after that, nothing. And up until this point too, he never had fallen backwards like that. He didn't do some weird jerking or whatever. The only times he would fall backwards if he was on like a soft surface, like the bed or the couch, and he would like roll. But again, it would be like this slow thing, not like someone just slapping him down to the ground. Anyway, it never happened after that again. And I guess compounding factor is that my mum found out about it, and then because she knew the people who were leasing out the place, and she talked to them about it. Generally, I don't talk to people about these things because it's often too strange for people. But surprisingly, the man of the couple who owned the place, who were leasing it to us, and we knew them, told us the next time we saw them, we were just at like a dinner together. And he said, I felt like there was always something off about this place. Now, again, that's not just, therefore it's true, but it was interesting. I didn't see it coming for him to point blank and be like, not what are you doing in my place? Like for him to be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because there's always felt like there was something wrong there. And I'm like, well, there definitely was something going on. So hopefully it's done now. Anyway, a bit of an unpleasant streak here, but it's just what it is. This one is like entirely, there's two. Now that I remember, there's two that I'll say one after another here, are like entirely my fault. Once, I'll do the one when I was younger. So I was 15 at the time, and I watched a movie. Should I say the movie's name? Guess so. I watched Constantine with Keanu Reeves. I watched that when I was 15. Anyway, I enjoyed the movie. But if you don't know what it's about a man that fights off demons, with the pseudo power of heaven and holy relics. Not a movie I would recommend if you're sensible. But anyway, I watched that because I have real sensible parents that allowed me to do things like that when I was young. But I went to bed that night and I didn't fall asleep this time. And I was on the second floor of the building. We're on holidays. I was on the second floor, and my bedroom just had a big glass window. This one was as I was saying my nighttime prayers. And hopefully I'd learnt my lesson from when I was 11, eh? But I was saying my night prayers, and no joke, just two bangs, two like boom, boom on the window. And obviously it scared me very much. And again, I spiritually knew what was going on straight away. And I just went, as a Catholic, I just went straight to the St. Michael prayer, asking for protection there. But it was, yeah, I guess to me, I took it as another lesson. Like, why are you watching stuff like that? Like, who are you inviting into your life? Like, what are you inviting into your life? But yeah, and for like, hopefully it's common sense and I don't have to do this at this point, but for anyone who's like, I'm not sure, second story building, let's be sensible, some random would have had to, and I looked straight away, because as soon as I bashed, I saw straight away. But, so I don't know why I'm even trying to explain this. I'll use, maybe it was two birds in a row, boom, boom. Problem was there was not the feather outline that you get from the oil from the birds. Because I could see there was enough light. I don't remember if I checked in the morning, but I could see very clearly because there was light outside from a street light as well. Anyway, so be careful what you watch. Oh, yeah, well, I just said be careful with what you watch, and then my next example is of watching another movie. So it was Paranormal Activity, very popular when I was in high school, and I was 18 when this one happened. I didn't want to watch it, but I was somewhat peer pressured into watching it. Because we had friends hanging out. We were meant to be hanging out, but instead we watched this movie, Paranormal Activity. Great. And at this point, I'm not a scary movie dude. It's never been my thing. I don't want it, but I was like, I guess I'd do that or sit by myself for the next hour and a half or whatever it is. Should have just sat by myself, and I did that later on in life. I'm like, nah, peace out. Anyway, I watched the movie. It was very unpleasant. Don't recommend watching it. And it's about paranormal activity, about this woman that gets possessed and blah, blah, blah. Oof. Anyway, after watching the movie, I went to go to the toilet. I was going to the toilet. I was doing a stand-up wee-wee. And the door got opened onto me. And I was confused because I locked the door going to the toilet. But my first reaction was that I didn't think about the locking aspect, but I'm sure you've had it happen to you where you're like, oh, someone's in here. And I went to go, oh, I'm in here, guys. And I was like, and then no reaction. So I looked out and no one was there. And it wasn't like someone was there and then ran away. Like I looked out because I was like, what's going on? And then I remembered the door was locked and I was like, oh no. And again, at this point, it wasn't some surprise to me. And I just went, oh, you're stupid. You're stupid. So I finished the rest of my wee, whatever I could get out. And I went out to my friends and I asked them as well, just because I try and be as scrupulous and like skeptical as possible. I just went out and asked, did anyone come to the toilet, even though I remember locking it, even though it was unlocked so I was like, maybe I didn't lock it I don't know. And I said, did anyone come into the toilet? I'm like, no. And I just went, they're like, what's wrong? And I didn't want to say anything, but then it'd probably be more awkward if I just, oh, nothing. I said, someone opened the door on me. They're like, who? I'm like, well, I don't know. Was it any of you guys? And then they were like, oh, I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. And I think it was a bad idea that we watched that film. Everybody was on edge for the rest of that night. So look. Okay, let's change it up. Let's change up something a bit nicer. So this is when I was 16, I believe, 15 or 16. I was with my, anyway, I was in a relationship, and I was talking to my girlfriend about my faith and why I believe, and kind of something similar to this, basically. And I had such, because we've been together for a while, like let's say over a year, maybe even 2 years, maybe not 2 years at that point. And I was getting a bit annoyed that she didn't believe me. Like, and that's the thing that does frustrate me about stuff like this, is I could know people for years. And I could talk to them about something like this, and then all of a sudden they're like, being all skeptical. I'm like, are you seriously? When have I ever, are you seriously? Are you serious? When have I ever lied to you? When do I make up stories? When do I exaggerate? Why all of a sudden now, when it's something you don't agree with or that doesn't make sense to you, it's like, oh, maybe he's a, like what? I've got a mental problem and I lie all of a sudden? Like, excuse me? But getting back to it, it was a similar situation like that where I was getting annoyed at her. Like, why don't you trust me? Like, you should know me better than, well, after my family, you should know me very well. And she was like, oh, well, maybe, and I know the story. I know the song and dance of how this works, because you either believe it or you don't. You either want it or you don't. And I said, fine, you want to do this? And I think it was the time where I had the most faith in my entire life. I said, I'll show you. And I said a prayer. And I said, Father, and anyway, I won't go into what the prayer. I just said, like, God, can you change the weather to make it rain? Because it was sunny. We're outside. We're on the Esplanade. We're out at at the marina. And it was a nice sunny day. I said, can you make it rain, please? To show my girlfriend that you exist and you answer prayers. And within like 20, like it was less than a minute. It was like 40 seconds max, I would say. Gray. And then it didn't come bucketing down, but it started to rain. And I just went, because I was waiting for it too. I said, we'll wait a while. We'll just keep talking. We'll wait a while. I was so sure. And I guess that's how faith works. Like, not just believing, but knowing God will do something. And I hadn't, that's not true. I'd done smaller things when I was younger like this. So I already had this like knowledge, this faith that God answers prayers and he can. And like there's a cakewalk for him. Yeah, change the weather. And it did. Within like, let's say 40 seconds, started to rain. And I just turned to her and I just went, and I was thinking about it before she even said it. She's like, oh, well, it could just start. I'm like, yeah, I know it can just start to rain. Yeah, that's true. It's very coincidental that it started happening right now after I said this prayer. I said, I'll do you one better. And I went, stop it from raining. And this was like within 15 seconds, it stopped. And I went, what about that one? I was like, let's wait. And it stopped. And she was like, well, and I'm like, yeah, we're thinking the same thing, like a passing rain shower. And I went, let's do it again. And she's like, I'm doing it. I'm frustrated. And I went, make it rain again, please. I don't remember the time frame, but it was just, and it started raining. I said, I'm done. I said, that's enough. I said, thank you. You do whatever you want with the weather now. But that was really nice. And I'm glad, anyway, that was great. I remember that fondly. This is a nice one, interesting one. So at my grandfather's place, and this might, anyway, I don't, like, I'm just telling you the truth. If it doesn't sit with you, and because, especially with Christians, I find it funny when I tell other Christians or Protestants or whatever your denomination is, me being, Catholic, tell them about things like this, and they're like, I disagree with you now. Why? Because it's not what you believe in Christianity. It's the same God. What are you so annoyed about? You know what I mean? But my grandfather, he was, how do I go about it? He was given the choice by his angel from God. So his angel came to him and told him, we'll give you the choice that for basically the rest of your life, if you want to, because he really cared about actors. like when he grew up, there was his solitude in watching the cinema, because he was, his parents didn't, parents, and anyway, he was alone quite a lot, so he found solitude watching film. So he loved the actors, and he understood to some degree the terrible circumstances that they would be in Hollywood, and how it would be very hard for them to live a decent moral life. So he'd pray for them a lot, especially once they died, to pray for them to please get to heaven. So he was, and it sounds a bit strange, but it was the case, he was offered the opportunity that when the souls die, and it wasn't just the souls of the of actors, even though there was a lot of them. Well, I can't say that that's what he said, but I'll get to the point that I do know, that I don't have to take someone's word for. But this pretext is to understand what happens. He was given the offer that the souls of the dead, when they die, they're going to come knock on your roof, so you know to pray for them. And they won't necessarily publicize who they are, but someone's going to come knock on your roof, and you know at that point you need to pray for them. Whatever time, day, hour, whatever it is. And he went, sure. And for my whole life, like, this is one of those things where everybody went over there. It would happen all the time. It would happen like at least once a day. And for my whole life, I'm from the age that I can remember, let's say like 9 years old to, what was the last time I saw him? Like 28, 29 years old, the whole time. And my whole family, everybody, it was just the norm. You'd just be at there, and you just hear on the roof like a big, and it was a tin roof as well, just big boom boom on the tin roof. And we'd all go, we all knew the story. We were like, oh, someone needs help. And we'd pray. And now there is the common sense thing of, okay, and part of the reason why I told you about it, like, you have corrugated iron tin roof, right? Whatever it is. And when roofs heat up from the sun, they expand, right? And that expansion can cause them to expand to the point where they like dislodge from their current spot. And I'm sure people have this in their house, even in cold places where your house creaks or whatever, it moves. It wasn't that. And you could tell the difference. You could hear that, when the sun would go down and the roof would like shift back into its, smaller size, and you could hear that shifting. It wasn't that. It was like a knock. Like, you'd hear a knock on the door, but it was on the roof. And the other thing, there was no trees or anything above the roof. It's not like there were convenient stick branches falling. So there was nothing like that. And it was all the time. Like, there'll be several times in a day sometime. And it would always be just, and it wasn't always two knocks. It was either just a big bang, and it would always be loud enough. And if my grandpa with his bad hearing didn't hear it, someone else did. You'd be in the kitchen, and Grandpa, do you hear that? And be like, nah, like someone knocking at the roof. Be like, okay. And everybody would stop what they're doing. We'd all pray. And a part of me goes like, maybe it's like, what do you call it when you're, placebo, like a placebo thing. Like, if you believe something, it's the case, your brain like tricks you into like hearing it a certain way. But we would have randoms over. Like, I was a carer for my grandparents and my uncle, and when they're like carers who would take them to go like to the botanical gardens or something like that, go do something in the community, would come over, they'd sit down and have a cup of tea afterwards, and sometimes it would happen, dung, and they'd be like, the conversation would stop, and they'd look in, because it was an unnatural noise. It was, and that's what I would be looking for, is like if these people were hearing what I was hearing as well. And I remember very clearly one time where I wanted to find out, like I was going to press the person, because usually I just kind of like let it slide, and I'd just ignore it, even though I could see them reacting. But one time there was this younger lady over, and there was a big old double knock on the roof, and the conversation stopped. And I just went to her, you heard that, didn't you? She said, yeah, what was that? I said, do you want to know? She's like, and I'm like, it sounded like a knock, didn't it? She's like, well, and I said, yeah, okay, cool. I'm not just hearing it. And I said, look, that's that's the and I was similar like this. I was like, that's the soul. That's a dead person. That's the soul of the dead. And she was just like, and anyway, I could see her brain going like, I heard something, but that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad that you can hear what I hear. I'm not. But yeah. Oh, this one's fairly interesting. So I would have been 11 or 12 when this happened. So my sister went on a school excursion, and she went out to on an island, and she was in the photo. Yes, it was my sister. Someone took a photo of my sister at a beach. So if I'm the photographer, here's the sister, and the beach is behind my sister. And this was on film camera, not digital camera. So we had to get the image. What do you call it? Rendered, developed. We had to get the image developed. When the image was developed behind, and it seemed behind my sister was, and this sounds goofy, but I'm gonna go through them all, and believe me or you don't. There were what looked like a man made out of coral, and it would have been out on the water. It wasn't like really close. It would have been, from the depth perception you could perceive from it, he probably would have been around 60 meters to like 80 meters away. I don't know what that is in feet, like maybe double it in a bit. So like up to 160 feet away. And it looked like all out of bleached coral, like a man's shape out of bleached coral. And it was like real stark and real clear too, not like some blurry thing. It was really clear, and you couldn't see the feet, couldn't see the legs of the figure. It was behind my sister's shoulder, like it was here. But it was very, very clear. Like I remember someone saying, or maybe it was one of my sisters said, maybe it was like a bird poo, like caught in mid-fall. But it was too clear, like the shutter speed of the camera that they would have been using. I believe it couldn't have caught it at that clarity. And it wasn't the shape of a bird poo, or nor the texture of it. But we were trying to think the possibilities before we just jumped to, oh, it's supernatural. So my grandfather decided, well, let's pray on it, because it's not the first time he had seen something like this either. And my grandfather is like the guy when it came to, anyway, I could do a whole other video, and I might do, just on all grandpa stuff. Anyway, he prayed about it. We all prayed. And his angel came and said, this is a whaler that has died off of this island back, and I don't remember the date. My brain wants to say 16 something, but it could have been 18 something as well. I don't remember the date, but it's the soul of a whaler who's stuck here, died from a shipwreck out this way, and he's been allowed to pop up in this photo, knowing that it's going to come back to your house in the hope that prayers for his soul. So we're going, okay, cool. So he did that and prayed for him, and that's that. I don't either remember what happened after that point as well. Like, I don't think we asked. I think we did our bit and prayed for the guy. This is one of those ones where I'm like, oh man, the photo would have been really handy to have, and we might still have the photo. I don't remember. My mum keeps a fair bit of stuff, but again, it's like, I don't think it would prove the point to someone. I think it would be interesting for the people who do believe what I'm saying, but for anyone else, they're like, oh, you could have photoshopped. Yes, of course. Go and look, let's be honest, people go to ridiculous lengths to do this. I'm not ignorant to the fact. Yes, people go very much out of their way in whatever problem they have to fool people, to lie to people, in the hope to like convert people by making stuff up. You see it all the time, especially with AI stuff now. Like, even friends and family that I have will put it up in like our message group about, anyway, a family group, and they'll be like, oh, did you see this miracle thing that happened? And I'll just, first thing I do is I'll go look for the source, the facts, like corroborating evidence and photos and things like that, and I'll look for it. I'm like, that's just made up. Like, that's just using a painting done by so-and-so, Photoshop to look like a photo of this thing, of a guy that was around at the time, but who died before even the painting was done. I'm like, you can't just be putting stuff up. You can't be believing whatever you see on Facebook. Like that's that's not what the truth is, and God is the truth. God's the way, the truth, and the life. Don't insult God by, oh look, spreading crap that. And I can understand why people do it, because I think, oh, I've got to convince people. I've got to convert people. That's not how you do it, by lying to people. That's not how you do it. If anything, you damage it, because as soon as they find out, they're not going to trust you or anyone else who does stuff like that again. So when God is ready to show them a genuine miracle, they go, ah, no, I've seen this trick before. Stupid. And then God goes, thank you. Thank you, so-and-so, for ruining their opportunity. Now, God is greater than you can ever be in any of your mistakes, but don't get in the way. Bit of a rant, but I can understand why people do that kind of stuff. Hence why I'm not going to sit here and be like, look, the thug had the photograph. Because with this one, I don't have the photograph. Oh, it's hot in here. But keep your clothes on. This one's nice. It's a simpler one. Nothing big, but it happened several times. And I was not really sure, because again, I try and be sensible and skeptical when something that seems supernatural or like it shouldn't have happened happens. I try and figure it out using logic first before I jump to any conclusions. But one day it was very obvious. I was driving the car and a spider jumped on my hand. It was a small spider, and I live in Australia, spiders everywhere. And I didn't freak out. I love animals, especially little jumping spiders. So my reaction was to like, oh, I gotta make sure I get this guy out the window, so I don't want him to get squashed somewhere or end up somewhere he shouldn't be. But I've become so like focused on helping this spider that I've like taken my hand off the steering wheel. I'm lowering the window and I'm like trying to stop him from jumping somewhere else to get him outside, so I can then just throw him outside, which probably isn't best for him. But anyway, it's just what I do generally when bugs end up in the car. I wouldn't be able to calculate the time, but it was like probably at least 10 seconds. Because if I had to like replicate what I was doing, even if I was doing it fast, we're talking like 6-7 seconds. And I've come back and I've felt real good about myself helping the spider out the window that I've turned in. Again, this is not the first time that's happened. And I've looked at reality and I'm turning around a corner. Now, in most countries, I'm assuming the road is designed at a camber, right? You have the middle of the road and you have one lane and the other. So when it rains, the rain runs off. So if you are to leave your steering wheel, generally your car will roll to the outside. And it's also to prevent crashes. If someone falls asleep, the car rolls away from the other lane. Anyway, I was not only going the other way to the camber, there was a corner and I was still driving around the corner, and like a long bend too. And like, I was just like, someone steering the car around the corner. Like, I'm on the corner and like still fine. And I had enough time to realize what was happening and go, thank you. Yeah, and this had happened a few times, but this time it was like, no, I should have been in the gutter, like in the bush. So that was nice. Yeah, so this one is, I think I'll probably do a video about this one time. It's just an interesting thing that happened in my life. I was working over in, I won't give the full story now because it's like one of those stories that's worth telling in its long form. But I was working over in China and had complications with the employer, and long story short, was hunted by the employer and he was a part of the triad and didn't know that. Hunted by them. Yeah. And we had to leave the country, and we were escorted by the police to the airport to get on our flight as well. But it's a long story. Anyway, I think that's it's not fun, it's an interesting story to tell, so I'll tell that in its long form. But the point of this one is that, because dreams, even in the Bible it says at one point, don't believe what you see in dreams, even though it happens a lot. So I'm like, I don't get that one. But anyway, we have quite a few times where we have things revealed to us in dreams, or we have, angels visit us in dreams and whatnot. But it's one of those ones where it's like the least convincing. Not that I'm trying to convince anyone, because I could sit here and tell you about them, but I don't find they're as interesting, because a part of the brain goes, And I feel the same way, and it's why I'm not putting them in this video. But anyway, the reason why this one is standout, before I got the contract and went to work over in China, because I was a dancer, and like a proper dancer, not a stripper, like a theatrical dancer. But my mum told me probably like not even a week before I was leaving, she just came and told me like, oh, I had a dream and it was like a premonition that you were going to have your legs broken if you went over and did this job. And I went, thanks, Mum. Thanks. Oh, great. Oh, she's like, oh, but I'm a bit worried now. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I need a job. I've got this job, and what, I'm just going to go with your dream premonition thing. And to be fair, like, it wasn't the first time that something like this has happened, but I was just, the way she went about it, I wasn't too keen. And anyway, but yeah, it probably would have happened if things went differently. If we had been caught, it probably would have. I can imagine that being happening. So that was somewhat interesting. So that's another smaller one. Similar to one of the first things, like my friend, how I was told about her baby and the partner breakup. Often, and it doesn't happen as much anymore. It was when I was looking after my grandparents and uncle quite a lot. Probably because I had a lot on my plate and I was doing something charitable, so God was a bit more happy with what I was doing. Not that I'm not now, I don't know. It happened then and it doesn't happen as much, but quite often when I'd be out doing shopping or getting something done or doing doctor's things, I would have a reminder. I thought that wasn't my own, being like, oh, remember the chemist. I'm like, oh, thank you, the chemist. And it became so, and again, you know in your spirit when it happens. Well, I do, I should say. I know in my spirit when it happens. So I'm not like, what was that? And because I've grown up with it a lot. But that would happen quite a lot. And it would just be simple stuff. It wouldn't be like, oh, here's a revelation of the future. It'd just be like, don't forget the medication. And be like, oh, I was going to, thank you. And I'd turn around at the next roundabout and go back. So that would be nice. Another nice one, actually, on the fact of my friend who had a miscarriage. When I was talking to her afterwards, well, she told me about it. Again, I've already told you. You know the story. I love her very much. I loved and love her very much. And her child wasn't my child, but I love people. I love children. I suggested we should probably pray for your child. And, just because they died here doesn't mean they weren't alive, doesn't mean they didn't have a soul, doesn't mean that God didn't give them life and they don't have the opportunity of life. And she's like, I don't want to talk about it. I said, well, it's your child. You have a responsibility as a parent. I said, you should pray for them. You should help them in whatever way you can. You're the mother. You brought the child into this world. It obviously wasn't born. Now, there was other parts of it as well. It was very sensitive. The whole relationship was a very sensitive thing, but she had hurt me a lot. And I, not in a way of curse or anything like that. I wouldn't do that. But I told her one day before this, like a while before this ever happened, I said, how long do you think God's going to let you mistreat me and abuse me before he's going to stop that and shut that down? I said, because he loves me just as much as he loves you. And I at least am trying to love and help you, where you're just letting your problems, your faults, and your lack of self-control and love, destroy my peace and my happiness. So how long do you think until my Father, who cares about me and both of us, is going to stop that? And the sad thing was, and I don't know if it's the case, but she took that miscarriage as her punishment for the way she had treated me. And that's what she said to me. I didn't think about that at all. I didn't think about that at all. It didn't come up to me. But that's what she felt was the case. But anyway, I said, I think we should pray for your baby. She said, it's not your responsibility. I said, no, it's not my responsibility. It's your bloody responsibility. You should pray for them. She said, I don't want to talk about it. I said, if you're not going to pray for them, if you don't love your child that much, I'll pray for them. She said, it's not your child. I said, well, it doesn't matter. I love them more than you do. So what does that say? And then obviously the conversation ended there. And I meant what I said. I'm not going to let someone else's lack of love or stupidity or emotional outbursts not pray for someone in need. A beautiful child who hasn't done anything wrong. So I went and prayed. I got on my knees and I calmed down first. And I found a specific prayer as well. And I just said a simple prayer. I'm not going to go over the whole prayer. And I said, Lord, if it's within your power and nothing is impossible for you, you said for your father, about your father, nothing is impossible for God. Can you save the soul of this beautiful child of my friend who I love and whom this child I also love? Can you take them? I just prayed that Christ, being a priest, as he is the high priest, baptize the child. Because, you need to be baptized to enter into the kingdom of heaven. That's what Christ says. I said, please, Christ, you're like the priest, you're the high priest, you're the master of the universe. Can you please baptize this child? And bring them to heaven with you. Because heaven... I just said, I believe that's possible because nothing's impossible for you. And I'm just going to ask you for that because asking you shall receive. So this is what I'm asking. And I remember I think because I was a bit frustrated, I wasn't moved or upset like I am now. Because again, I'm remembering it in like a third person point of view now. But I remember being like real kind of to the point with it. Like, this is unacceptable, the way that she's doing things. And I want to help this child if I can. But I will tell you what, it wasn't emotional. And I've had emotional before. Like, I remember when I first watched the Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson with Jim Caviezel. And it was funny because that movie came out when I was like, I don't know, 12 or something. And I just never watched it. I'm like, whatever. And I think it was on purpose. So I watched it at a time that was meaningful. But anyway, I watched it when I was 24. And I can understand, even though I feel like there was a bit of spiritual things going on while I was watching that movie, because my arms went anyway. Like, my arms went numb, my skin felt like it was on fire. I was crying and babbling and boogers coming everywhere, and I was just, my heart felt like it was palpitating a bit. I don't think it was, because I think that would have more physiological side effects. I couldn't breathe very well. And I did say, to make it clear at the start of that film, I'll blow my nose. And to make it clear, at the start, before I watched the film, I did pray and ask, if you want me to understand or comprehend something from this film, Lord, or if you want to share if I can be blessed with understanding to some degree some of your suffering, because you suffered for my sake, and I would feel honored if I could understand to some degree what you went through for my sake. I think he answered that prayer in a small degree. Well, he answered that prayer, and then of course I felt like he was giving me a small degree of that. These mosquitoes, sorry, they keep catching my attention. So when I was watching The Passion, I'd asked for something along those lines, and I'm pretty sure I got it. Where this time, when I was praying for this miscarried child, that wasn't on my mind at all. I just had a task that I wanted to get done. But even more than when I was watching The Passion of the Christ. Not the suffering side of it, but my skin felt like it was on fire. Like, not painfully so, but like it felt very, I've never had it before. Never have I had something like that before or since. Like that, I'm trying to be factual and whatnot, but it felt like my skin was on fire. Oh, and I just remember it. Oh, I remember it. And to me, it was lovely because, again, I was saying a prayer that I didn't know that could be answered, but I have faith, right? Like Christ says, nothing is impossible for God. Well, there we go. That's it. Nothing is impossible for God. That's my faith. It's easy and done. Doesn't matter what it is. I can ask for it, and if it's in line with God's will, like Christ says, it can be done. And I just trusted in that, and it was like God was just saying, "Yep, I'll answer that one," and it was really nice. It's really nice to have that confirmation, because again, it wasn't just. Because you could say, oh, because you're emotional, or you can build that. No, I've done more. That's why I gave the example of the Passion of the Christ movie. I've been in those situations. This wasn't it. I wasn't emotional. It wasn't anything like that. I didn't have anything to go off. It just was dumped on me. There's just fire, like someone had put kerosene or whatever, low, combustion oil or gas, petroleum on my skin. Like it was just burning. And I've had my skin on fire before as well. It didn't feel like it wasn't painful. It wasn't scorching my skin. Anyway. Oh yeah. So my sister, my eldest, I got two older sisters. My eldest sister, she's had a lot of stuff happen because she was probably the most innocent and kept her virginity and was very very meek and humble, beautiful girl. Anyway. This would have been, and she had, my sister, again, grandpa and sister especially, and grandma, oh, so much, and even my uncle, so much stuff happened. Like, the things that I'm telling you, multiply that by like 5 at least. Grandpa, multiply it by like 20. But ones that didn't happen to me, but have happened recently and that I was involved in some way, I'll go with those because they're interesting as well. Is that my sister called me up one night. I would have been 20, I think I was already I would have been like 29, 28 years old. She just called me up and she said, Marcus, the demons, the evil spirits are throwing the furniture around my room. They're slamming the wardrobe in my room. They're, bashing on the windows and stuff. I've tried praying, but it's still pretty bad. And this isn't not new for her. She's caught worse than I have. And I'm pretty sure it's to discourage her because she's, well, if you're trying to do good things, bad people don't want you to succeed. Anyway, so she called me up, which I'm very grateful for, that she has the faith in her younger brother. Anyway, so I prayed with her. And reminded her of the authority of Christ and what he can do, which she doesn't necessarily need, but when you're tired and afraid, it's easy to lose that strength and fortitude. And that's just in real life. Like, I was in the military, man. You're tired and people are screaming at you. Yeah, you lose. You don't become a bit of a wet noodle sometimes. So that was that. And there was another time, and this is a nice thing. I've got 2 older sisters, and my eldest one would have the things happen to her, and then the younger older sister that I would have would see not in detail, like she'd see the shadows, or she would hear something, or she would know something's up. And that would happen all the time, which was nice because, especially when my sister was, younger, as a parent, you would probably go like, oh, is she imagining things, or if anything like this? But when the other child's like, no, I saw it as well, then you can have a bit more confidence. And again, it's pretty normal for us. That's not really what we did. But even later on in life, again, I would have been 26, and both my sisters were coming to stay at my grandparents' place, which I was living near at the time when I was looking after them. And they just called me one night, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. And who was it? One of the sisters said, "Can you come over here? We just saw something. We saw a spirit. It was dark. It seemed pretty nasty. Can you come over and help us?" So I went, "Yeah, of course." And went over there, and it was kind of funny. I'll tell the story as it is. But my two sisters were getting ready to go to bed, and at the door there was a dark figure. And my older sister saw it and was pretty terrified. I don't remember exactly what she did, if she started praying or she just kind of, but she like nudged my older sister, and she got up and she saw it as well. So my older sister, she's more rough than my gentle older sister. She got out of bed, and her reaction, because she was, obviously they're older than me, and I'm 26 at this point. Her reaction was to pull up a nightgown and moon the spirit and tell it to F off, which I thought was great. And it did, which is kind of funny. But they were both pretty shaken after that, and they called me up, as I said. I went over there, and they told me what had happened. So we all prayed about it. So again, these are nice because it's not just one person, and then you can go, oh, maybe it's the imagination, or maybe they have this, or maybe, well, when it's multiple people that corroborate the story, it makes it more believable and easier. Oh man, this is going to be a long video. There's so many, and these are just the ones that are like worth telling, I guess. I don't know. So that same friend that I was talking about that had the miscarriage and I was praying for, her, and this was before this happened. This was probably like 2 years before the miscarriage and all this happened. Her dad shot himself when she was 3, and he died from the injury. And I believe it because that's just the story. It's what Mum said as well. Again, I try and always be super factual about things, but I think it's to a point of flaw. But Dad shot himself and died. So she grew up without a father, which sucks. Anyway, I won't go into that. So one day I said to her, and she was baptized, so she was like a Christian, but only in baptism. Only, she wasn't practicing. I just said, I think we should pray for your dad. She's like, what do you mean? I said, look, I know that you pray, haven't been taught it and whatnot, but like before Jesus came along, what happened to all the people that died? Like, would they all just go to hell because Jesus wasn't there? Like, because baptism wasn't around then, and you need to be baptized to get into heaven. I said, that sounds a bit rough. What about Abraham and you know, Lazarus and Moses? That obviously wasn't the case, because they saw, you know, Moses and Isaiah with Jesus when he got transfigured. And Jesus hadn't died yet, and they weren't baptized. So where the heck were they? Anyway, I said there's a place called purgatory. It's just the resting of the dead. It's where the dead go before they're baptized and welcomed into heaven, before they're washed of their sins, perfect and robed with white. She was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And this is at a point in our relationship where it was friendship, really, when things were a bit more steady before things crumbled. So I said, I think we should pray for your dad. So she was willing, and we said prayers. And for like 2.5 weeks, we'd just pray. Whenever we hang out, or even when we're on the phone, we'd pray. And I would pray in my spare time as well. I remember one night I was praying for like 3 hours or something, just all night. I was just crying and crying and crying and praying. Anyway, after about 2.5, 3 weeks, we were like, okay, we'll think that's enough. We felt like we'd kind of done enough. And we left it. And about 2 months later, we were hanging out, and she told me that she saw her dad. I was like, okay. She's like, I was at home and I was by myself, and the TV was off, and I was sitting on the couch, and he appeared on the TV. I said, well, that's cool. She's like, and I tried, like, she said, at first my brain was like, this can't happen. And like her logical mind kicked in. I said, yeah, I know that feeling. She said, but I sat there, and she said it felt like a minute, maybe even 2 minutes. She said she was just sitting there and just like burning it into her brain, like, this is happening, this is real, I can see him. And she was like just reassuring herself that what was going on. I said, well, that's lovely. I said, what do you think that means? She's like, I said, we pray for your dad. He's been dead for 20 something years, about 20 years at this point. And then you see him after we pray for him. I said, did he look happy? She's like, yeah, he looked real happy. I said, did he say anything? And she said, no, I didn't say anything. I said, okay, cool. I said, so what do you think we should do now? She's like, I'm like, we say thank you. We say thank you. I said to her, what do you think that means? She's like, I think he's good. Like, we pray for him and then he appears before you. Wouldn't that be a sign to you to say that your prayers are answered? Like, what's the point? What's the point of him appearing before you, because he can't do that by himself. He's not the master of the universe. He can't just do what he wants. He's got to get a permission to do something like that. So he's been given permission to, go against the laws of natural world, to do something supernatural, to appear to you, and for a long and obvious time, so you can get it locked into your brain that it's happening, and then come and tell me, the random Catholic guy that you've just met recently that's giving you these random prayers, and now this has all happened. What do you think that means? She's like, okay. I'm like, yeah. And it was really nice because probably a month and a half after this, her partner at the time, he again was Christian in baptism only, and he was much more about it. Like, yeah. He was much more of an idiot about it. I loved him, and we were decent friends. But I told him he needs or should support her faith more. Like, it's important. And he knew what happened with the whole dad thing as well. And he was like, oh, well. I was like, you're not taking this seriously. This is not good enough. And seriously, a month and a half later, he comes up. He called me, actually. I don't think we met because we hardly ever met at this point. He called me up. And he said, my grandma passed away on the weekend. And she always had this silver necklace that my grandpa gave her. She wore it all the time. When we went to the funeral, we had the open casket thing. But when my grandma was in the open casket, her necklace was gold. I'm like, he's like, no, it was like, I checked if it was the lighting, but her necklace had become gold. I'm like, okay, what do you want from me? He's like, what do you think? I'm like, what do you think? Oh, I think. What do you mean? What a dumb. What do you think I'm going to sit here and be like, oh, actually, the reactions between, what is it, Na and Ng, whatever gold and silver are on the periodic table. Oh, yeah, it's a process that happens if you're exposed to a dead person. Like, what do you think's happened? He's like, yeah, but I'm like, my guy, you've literally had your girlfriend have this big miracle after we've said prayers for her dad. You know about it. And now you've got your grandma whose necklace is just inexplicably turned gold. And you're calling up me. And what do you think I'm going to say? Like, oh, yeah, I don't know about that. Do you think maybe God is trying to say, hey, bro, yeah, I exist. And you should probably switch your faith back on? I said, what do you want? Oh, well, I don't know what to. I said, I'm gone. I'm not doing this conversation with you. You're an adult. You should know better. You should know what this is all about. Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah. Anyway, to get on to, I thought they were extra ones, but to get on to ones that are like more probabilistic and you could rationalize that I won't, like, I'll give examples of things that I'm leaving out. Also because this video is super long already. I'm sweaty as. Like, there were things, and I'll just use the two most recent ones because when I was with my wife as well. When my wife and I first met and we were traveling together before we got married, I remember we were at just a jetty, a big rock wall jetty. And I was just sitting there saying my morning prayers, and she was just sitting there patiently waiting, and we're just, enjoying the water. And I kind of was like, do you want to know, like, what I'm doing? What I'm just sitting here talking to myself? She's like, yeah, I guess so. And so I started to explain my prayers, what they were, who they were to, what they meant. And as we were doing, and she was really locked in too, which was nice. As I was talking to her about this, and again, to us, it is so like clear what happened. But if I was to tell, and I've told people this as well, and if someone had told me, yeah, my brain, and I can understand it, I'm not daft. The probability of it, yeah, it's a natural probabilistic thing that can happen. But if you were to really run the probability of some of these things happening, like the time, the circumstance, the people, the topic, the everything about it, it's really slim. It's really slim. And you can still go, well, that's kind of how things can happen. Sure. But when you know, you know. Anyway, I was talking to her about prayers and explaining to her, and this massive, it's the biggest sea turtle I've ever seen. And I mean, like, I know sea turtles get big, but it would have been probably from beak to rear fin, like 1.2 meters or something. It was huge. It just popped right up in front of us. We're up on a rock wall, right? We're just up on the rock wall and the water's here, just as close as it could get. Just popped out of the water and just looked straight at us. Like, not it just popped its like right up in front of us, and we were like facing each other looking, but it caught both of our eyes, so we looked, and it just looked at us for like 5 seconds, just looking, and then it just went down and swam away. And I looked at it, and I knew as soon as I saw her face, I knew I didn't need to say anything to her, my not wife at this point in time. But I said, "You know what that was, right?" And she went, "Yeah, I think so." I don't want that. Like, I know what that is, but I can see that you're clicking on. I said, we'll say thank you in a second, because that's winner. No joke. Later on that night, we're driving, doing more of our road trip. And after that, she was moved to the point, because she had a Christian friend, like her whole life kind of friend, who had been trying to like convert her and, yeah, I guess convert her to Christianity, but it didn't work. But she was so moved by what happened and what I was explaining, that she kind of realized what her friend was trying to bring her into at this point. It was just that God blessed me with the opportunity to spread that good news, reveal the truth of it to my wife. And I guess, anyway, I'll leave it at that. But she was messaging her friend saying, I think I just finally realized why you were so committed to doing what you were doing and how important it is. I'm really grateful. And she sent that message, and I didn't know she was sending that message because I was driving. She was just on her phone. But as I was driving, I just saw the biggest meteor. It could have been a meteorite. It looked so close and so bright and, so close to the ground. Biggest meteor streak, the closest one I've ever seen. And I was just like, whoa. And I said, you saw that? And she's like, that. And she just looked at me and I went, what? She's like, I just sent a message literally like 20 seconds ago to my best friend so-and-so, thanking her for all the time that she had been trying to tell me about God. I went, oh, you are spoiled. You are so spoiled. You are spoiled. She went, I think that was a confirmation of, again, I said, 2 in 1 day. 2 in 1 day. Anyway, so you can sit there and go, well, it's a could be a coincidence. This, yeah, sure, great. Yeah. Hence why I'm not going to talk about those much. But in comparison, I thought I'd just give you some. We got heaps like that, even more than like that. That's just every day. Well, I shouldn't be so boastful. That's more common. More common. Anyway, this is longer than I thought. I hope you enjoy this. And to be honest, this is my life that I'm telling you. Like, this is a part of my life, and an important part of my life, because I got myself, my own dignity, my wife, my children, our marriage, my parenthood, and then God involved in all of that. It's a personal thing. Like, it's Christ and God is a part of our life, family, and marriage. So when I'm talking about these things, I hope you at least have the respect to see that I care about you enough to share my life and what's happened, in the hope that at least it makes you smile, maybe for even one person, it's enough for them to go, I believe this guy. But yeah, I'm sharing it because it's pretty important stuff to me. It's pretty big stuff. And it's a bit unfortunate that in the world that we live in, not a lot of people will believe what I say, and the beautiful blessings and majesty that it is kind of thrown in the bin. I'm grateful that at least I have the respect and love for God to see it for what it is, and I share my life with a wife who also does the same. But yeah, hopefully there's some people that this might be encouraging to. Things like this and a life like this is why I have the blessed opportunity to be so confident in my understanding and seeing reality for what it is, because it's like being hit across the face with a cricket bat and then trying to ignore the pain and the broken nose that you have. I can't do that. I'm not willing to do that with all these miracles. So I don't have to spend my life, or a large majority of my life, trying to figure out why I'm here, what it's for. Is religion real? Which religion? What should I do? How should I do it? What does God want of me? I can have confidence in what I've seen and experienced and what I believe, and thankfully the religion and the faith I've been brought up with has proven that's where the God of this universe lies and exists. Because if he didn't, if I was brought up in some faith and God made it clear that he wasn't in that faith, it wasn't in that religion, and he was somewhere else, I'd go find him where he is. I'm a very logical, sensible person. As emotional and heartfelt as I am, I couldn't not do that. I couldn't not seek the truth and find out what reality is. So I've been blessed with that, like the Apostle Thomas, where Christ says, you, Thomas, you see, you believe because you've seen. Blessed are those who haven't seen and yet still believe. Maybe I did need it. Maybe I did, because I'm such a, scrupulous, skeptical, analytical person. Maybe God knew that if I didn't give you all this, you wouldn't believe, you wouldn't have faith. Well, I am grateful for it, whatever the case, and I can have confidence with what I believe, and I can have faith because God has made it clear that he is the God of the Christians. He's God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And nothing's impossible for him. And I'm really grateful that I don't have to go through life with that difficulty. And I guess that's a part of the reason why I make these videos. Because it must be really hard. I can imagine it being really hard to be brought up and taught and, molded in a way that's not true, and not have real strong proof or evidence to believe otherwise. So you just kind of stick with that, and it makes sense and it's comfortable. And then when you're finally given something that makes you think, and I have a small, a subjective belief that God reaches out to everybody in a clear way at least once in their life. Because a good father doesn't let his children go astray without letting them know that they're loved. And I've pretty much every person I've met who's trying to do this has had that one thing, trying to figure it out. But I can imagine how hard it is to try and go against the world. And I'm really grateful I don't have to do that. That he's come and made himself known and clear to me. And not just me, even more so to my family. Like I said, my older sister and my grandfather, but every one of us has had the opportunity. And to have that part of a foundation in my life is really pleasant, so I can spend more time not figuring out what life is and if God exists and all the things that are attached to that, but how I should be and what I should be and how I can be better, what I should do. And hopefully it's a part of the reasons why these videos will be worthwhile for at least one other person, because that's all that matters, at least one person that it helps and saves or sees the truth or nudges in the right direction so they can find Christ, and yeah, all the rest of that. But yeah, I thought it would be sensible to say. It's why I'm so confident. It's why I'm so sure of myself, but still have the sensibility, the common sense to say, if I don't know, I don't know, just like everybody else. But I don't deny the things that I've experienced. I'm not going to sit here and say, does my wife and do my children exist, because I experience them every day. So I'm not going to play the foolish philosophical game of what is existence and what is experience. Yeah. Love you. See ya.